Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to sqadia.com. My name is Mohammad Osama, and today we are talking about the nervous system pathologies. And in this specific lecture, we are going to talk about the infections infections of the nervous system, or infections that can affect the neurological system. And also, we're going to talk about the tumors of the nervous system or the neurological system. So, we are going to talk about the bacterial or the pathogenic infections. We're also going to talk about the viral infections, and the most common viral infection also known as poliomyelitis, and we're also going to talk about the tumors of the nervous system. So let's talk about the infection of the nervous system and the portals of entry, that how does the infection occurs and how does the infective agent gets its access to the nervous system. So the most common is the hematogenous spread, which is via the blood. For example, if there was an infection in any other site or part of the body, it can spread to the nervous system via the blood route or the hematogenous route. Second is the trauma. For example, if there's a penetrating trauma of the head, it can actually result in communication between the external environment and the intracranial cavity. And that can actually result in, for example, infections in the brain. And another one is the local spread from the prinasal sinuses through the nose, or from the dental infection if someone is having inflammation in the gums, or having a dental infection. And can also spread from the peripheral nerves because they are associated with the central nervous system. However, it is important to note that no lymphatics enter the central nervous system, so the infection cannot access the nervous system via the lymphatic route. Now let's start off the different type of infections with the pathogenic meningitis, or we can say the pathogenic infections or the bacterial infections. So pathogenic meningitis is also known as bacterial meningitis, and it is a life-threatening central nervous system infectious disease or condition affecting the meninges of the brain or the central nervous system or the spinal cord, and it has very high mortality and disability rates associated with it. The three common bacteria are the Haemophilus influenza, Streptococcus pneumoniae, and Neisseria meningitidis, which account for the majority of the cases resulting in the pathogenic meningitis or the bacterial meningitis. So group B Streptococcus GBS bacteria, they actually are the major cause of bacterial meningitis in infants less than 2 years of age. On the other hand, Neisseria meningitidis is actually the most common cause or the major cause of bacterial meningitis in older children and young adults. And Streptococcus pneumoniae is most common pathogen in the adults. Now, what are the symptoms of the pathogenic meningitis? They include fever, headache, stiff neck, and committing and mental dysfunction ranging from lethargy to even coma. So here you can see this is a normal brain. This is the dura covering the brain. And in bacterial meningitis, there is either bacterial meningitis is advanced to the brain, or it can also involve the spinal cord and can result in spinal cord bacterial meningitis. So it is a life-threatening condition, and it should be managed as soon as possible. Another condition which can be due to different type of infection is the cerebral abscess, and also known as brain abscess. It is actually an abscess caused by inflammation followed by infection, infection followed by inflammation and collection of infected material. And this can once again either come from the local areas such as ear infection, dental abscess, or infection of the paranasal sinuses, or infection of the mastoid ear cells of the temporal bone, or epidural abscess. Or it can also be remote, for example, from the lung, heart, or kidney. The infection can come from other regions via the hematogenous route. Now, tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is actually caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and it is also known as TB, and it is very common. It is a very common pulmonary disease, but it can also result in the infection of bones, like tuberculosis of the bone, tuberculosis of the spine, and the tuberculosis of the nervous system is also a common condition that can occur. So tuberculosis meningitis is a condition which involves the meninges covering the nervous system, central nervous system, because of the infection by the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And This is also a very dangerous condition and should be managed as soon as possible. Now, fungal infections can also occur in the nervous system, and it can be because of either Cryptococcus neoformans, coccidioides, immitis, aspergillus, or histoplasma. And it usually occurs because of impaired resistance to infection, or in the elderly because they have the impaired resistance to infection. And it can involve meninges, and it can also involve the parenchyma of the brain as well. So it can result in meningitis or the infection of the brain substance itself. Now, toxoplasmosis is another condition which is actually a parasitic disease caused by Toxoplasma gondii, and it usually occurs in neonates when transmitted from mothers. And in newly born individual, it results in hydrocephalus, which is either increased production of the cerebrospinal fluid, or either the occlusion of the circulation of the cerebrospinal fluid, resulting in an enlarged head in the newly born, and resulting in mental retardation as well as other neurological abnormalities as well. In adults, however, it may not result in a lot of neurological manifestations, but the most common manifestation in adults is actually inflammation of the lymph vessels, also known as lymphadenitis. Now, another type of infection is the viral infection, and it can either result in meningitis or encephalitis or meningoencephalitis. So viral meningitis, also known as aseptic meningitis, because it is not caused by bacteria and it is not pyogenic, and symptoms all commonly include headache, fever, sensitivity to light, and neck stiffness. On the other hand, meningoencephalitis and encephalitis is characterized by perivascular cuffing and inclusion bodies in neurons or the glial cells, which are the supporting cells of the neurons, and it can also result in the formation of the glial nodules. Now, poliomyelitis. Poliomyelitis is used to be a very common, you can say, viral infection resulting in neurological disorder, neurological functions worldwide, but now it has been eliminated from the world, but it is still present in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Nigeria. Now, poliomyelitis is also often called or known as polio or infantile paralysis, and it is an infectious disease caused by poliovirus, which is eradicated in almost most of the world. So poliovirus enters the body through the mouth, infecting the first cells with which it comes in contact, and those first cells are in the pharynx and intestinal mucosa. This can occur over a few hours to a few days. The weakness most often involves the legs, but less commonly involves the muscles of the hand, neck, and diaphragm. So most commonly it involves the legs, so that is why we have seen that those children have weak limbs and they are either using crutches and they cannot walk. So many but not all people fully recover, and even after recovery, some people may develop post-polio syndrome, which is a slow development of muscle weakness similar to that which occurred in the initial infection in a person who had that infection. And poliovirus is usually spread from person to person through infected fecal matter entering the mouth. So it is the oral transmission through the infected fecal matter. So poor hygiene is also one of the risk factors in the areas where the poliomyelitis is still found. And it has a horizontal transmission. Now, as it involves muscles and it can result in neuromuscular disorders. So the most common muscles that involves is actually the hip flexors, the weakness in the hip flexors such as the iliopsoas, and weakness in the knee extensors such as quadriceps femoris, and weakness in the dorsiflexors of the ankle. Such as tibialis anterior, and on the other hand, contractures or shortening of the muscles on the posterior aspect of the legs, such as hamstring and the you can say tendoachilles, or you can say gastrosoleus muscles. And thumb muscles are also weak. Their shoulder muscles are weak. Muscles behind the arm are also weak, resulting in straightening of the arm. And back muscles on the other side of the backbone are also found to be weak in these individuals. Moving on to the tumors of the central nervous system, we have different type of tumors. So let's start off with the glioblastoma multiforme, which is found in the older individuals or the elderly, and the most frequent site for the glioblastoma multiforme is the cerebral hemispheres or the cerebral cortex, and is highly malignant, and it is a very rapidly growing tumor and the most common primary intracranial neoplasm found. Meningioma, on the other hand, as already the name suggested, is associated with meninges and more frequent in women, and it is found in the convexities of cerebral hemispheres, parasagittal region, falx cerebri, and sphenoid ridge. So it is a benign tumor, which is a good thing, and external to the brain and usually resectable, so it can be removed, resulting in good prognosis, and it is the second most common primary intracranial neoplasm after the glioblastoma multiforme. Now, medulloblastoma, which is usually found in young children, and it is the most commonly found tumor in the cerebellum, or the most frequent site for it is the cerebellum, and it is once again a highly malignant tumor like glioblastoma multiforme, and it is common in children, and it is a very common intracranial tumor of the children. Now, neuroblastoma is also found in children, and it is found in cerebral hemispheres or the cerebral cortex, just like the glioblastoma multiforme, but that was found in older individuals. So it is less common than the adrenal and other peripheral neuroblastomas, and is linked to marked amplification of M-MYC oncogene. So it has a genetic predisposition as well. Now, retinoblastoma, it is found in young children, occurs in familial, or it can also occur as non-familiar and sporadic forms. So it is found in retina, and it is bilateral and multifocal in familial form, whereas it is unilateral and unifocal in sporadic form. So it is the most common eye tumor of the young children, linked to RB gene deletion or inactivation. Now, neurolemoma, which is also known as schwannoma, it is found in middle age or later in life, and the most common site for this is the 8th cranial nerve when schwannoma is intracranial. So the characteristic is acoustic schwannoma, common intracranial tumor, ranking 3rd after glioblastoma multiforme and meningioma as the most common intracranial tumor, and it is benign and usually resectable, like the meningioma. And metastatic tumors from other sites, which can have variable incidence depending on the age, and they can come from primary sites such as lung, breast, skin, kidney, gastrointestinal tract, and thyroid, which can have different type of malignant and metastatic tumors, and more common. They are usually more common than primary central nervous system tumors. So that was all about the infections and tumors, in which we talked about pyogenic infections, viral infections, poliomyelitis, and tumors, central nervous tumors, nervous system tumors of the central nervous system. And I hope you learned a lot out of it. And keep on watching sqadia.com for more lectures. Thank you very much.